All right, we're 8:03 right now. Let's get it started. Again, thank you all for joining. It's been a while since we had the last session. Welcome to our Platform Security Academy session. Today, we're going to be talking about Zero Trust Access, especially around one of the core features that we introduced as part of Washington release, to how we're going to have the session validation context-based on the Zero Trust Access, which is something that Randir, who is the product owner, we are going to go a little bit more details in the next couple of slides. My name is Furqas Salim. I'm one of the product manager, outbound product manager here in platform security team. I've been with ServiceNow for almost 5 years. I worked for a few different products around conversational interface as well as the platform security as well. I enjoy talking to the customer like you to understand your use cases and concerns so that I can provide some strategies to meet your business needs while staying aligned with your security needs. I'm also joined by my colleague, Randir, as a guest speaker to go over some of our major enhancement on our Zero Trust Access as part of Washington release. Randir, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks a lot, Furqat. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Randhir. I'm a product manager here at ServiceNow. I have been working with ServiceNow for almost 6 years now. My primary focus area are user authentication, API authentication, integrations, zero trust access, and adaptive authentication. And I'm super excited to show the details about our new Washington deliverable and talk more about the use cases where it can help you meeting your security posture needs. Looking forward to the meeting and your questions. All right. So with that introduction,
So
I'll just
one harbor statement before we go any further, as this is the company's policy around here. So I just want to let you guys know we might talk about some of the things which is on our roadmap or maybe in our upcoming releases. So if you're looking for any kind of decision to purchase our product, please take a look at our the product which is available in the store and make your purchasing decision based on that as well. With that, I'll give back to Randir to go over some of the key enhancement as we introduce as part of Washington release.
sure. So our agenda is pretty straightforward today. I'll be talking about zero trust access and how it improves your security. Then we will do a live demo of the new feature, how you can configure it as a security admin and how it will impact the end users. And then we will take your questions. So with that, I will be directly coming to the zero trust and why is it important. So it's currently a buzzword and everyone is excited about the zero trust security architecture. And if we specifically talk about like application level security and how customers can enable zero trust on ServiceNow instances or any other application layer software. So there are three important concepts. The first one is the least privilege access, which basically talks about that you should only give the access that is required to perform a specific duty to the end users. The second one is verify explicitly, meaning you should not trust that once a user has provided their authentication that they are good for the whole session. You should continuously put your security controls in a way that user is again and again validating their identity and ensuring that they still have the same assurance session. And then the third one is assuming breach. What it basically says, it's basically the same thing that you configure and define your security controls in such a way that you assume that an attacker has stolen let's say your cookies or any other way they have impersonated your account or has taken over your account. And then your security controls can still protect from the damages. Right? So keeping these three important concepts in mind, we are building our zero trust access capability. So in the Vancouver release, we launched the session-based access feature, which basically allow you to define policies based on IP addresses, location, identity provider attributes to define the level of privileges users will get in a session. So the typical examples would be you have some high privilege users. You do not want to give them the sensitive roles when they are outside the trusted network, or if they are not using a company provided device, you can use that feature. Now, in this release, we are going to, like in the Washington release, we have delivered another capability, which is session validation context, and I'll go deep into it. But this is basically another control that will allow you to define policies that runs throughout the session. Um, Again, you can use different criteria like role, group, or IP uh, to to define a policy, and then this policy will be evaluated throughout the session. Uh, and basically, this slides talk about what are the different controls that are available on the platform today, how you can use them to define basically defense in depth strategy, meaning you can apply control at the time of login, you can do after the login, you can do during the login, and then in the future releases, we are also working on a capability which will allow you to verify the user identity continuously. So as you already know, we have adaptive authentication feature that is available with the platform from the Rome release onwards. Now, with that feature, there are two important concepts. One is pre-authentication policy, another is post-authentication policy. So pre-authentication policy is just very similar to IP address access control. You can define your IP ranges, and then you can say the users are allowed to access the instance if they are coming from that range. In addition, you can also use location filter. You can say that users are not allowed from certain countries. And then you also have a trusted mobile app feature, which allow you to selectively allow your mobile app users once they have registered their device as trusted. So that was a pre-authentication context feature. Then the post-authentication context feature was useful in scenarios where you want to allow certain users only from trusted network or trusted locations, while for other users, you are okay to have them log in from anywhere. So typically, if you have like a vendor risk management use cases or any other external user persona, let's say CSM users, uh, and like let's say in your instance, you are hosting ITSM, ITOM, and CSM, then many customers ask that I want my internal users to access the instance only from trusted network, while they also want to ensure that their external users can access from anywhere. So in those scenarios, post-authentication policy comes into the picture, and you can define a policy that says allow the access if it is an external user, and second condition, we allow the access if it is internal user and login is from trusted network. So that control was available since the Rome release. Now, in the Washington DC release, we have gone one step further, and then we allow you to define another policy that you can evaluate during the session. So once a user has authenticated session, uh, whenever their session attributes are changing, specifically the IP address, at that point you can run that policy and decide whether that session should continue or you should or it should be terminated. And as I mentioned, in the future, we are also planning to deliver a capability called continuous authentication. And the idea there is that based on the type of data user is accessing and based on the risk associated with their activity, you can ask the user to re-verify their identity either via MFA, multi-factor authentication, or via doing a re-authentication. So that capability is planned for the future releases. So in this demo, I will be focusing mostly on the session validation context. So this is a high-level flow that for integration users, regular users, or mobile app users, you can define various controls. So one is denying the access. Another one is you can define a policy that allow the access after MFA. Then you have a capability that allow the full access with post authentication policy. And then zero trust access is something where you can control how much privileges users will get in a session. So with session validation context, the additional capability that you are getting is that these policies gets evaluated within the logged in session. So this is the biggest difference. So the post authentication context policy was only getting evaluated once, and that was at the time of login. Once we have identified the user, either let's say if they have done SSO or if they are doing local login, once we have identified that, okay, this is the user and that this is their current role and groups, we could check these additional security policies to say, okay, this user is not allowed because they are outside the trusted network. So this is the biggest difference, that your session validation context policy almost does the same thing, but it gets evaluated multiple times during the logged in session. And the logic is that every time your IP changes, at that point, we will trigger this policy and see if the session should continue or we should terminate the session. This this policy gets evaluated for all authentication methods, whether it's SSO, LDAP authentication, local authentication. So it basically works with all authentication mechanism. One important caveat is that for mobile app users, the behavior is slightly different, and we can talk about in the later half. So yeah, with that, I will be showing you the demo. So I will be talking about first logging in as admin, and then I will talk how admin can define these policies. And then once they have defined these policies, how the experience would be for the end user perspective. Now, important point to note here is that this policy basically provides you an additional control to protect your user sessions and integration sessions against attacks involving stolen cookies, or basically attacks involving session hijacking. And will talk about in the end that how you can use this policy for protection against those kind of attacks. So now I'll switch to my instance. Okay, so this is a demo instance, and I will be logging in as an admin, and we will be using our familiar adaptive authentication policy framework to define a policy. And then later we will associate that policy to session validation context. We'll also talk about different properties that need to be enabled for this feature. And then finally, we'll talk about how you can verify the enforcement, and are there any audit results that you can check. Okay, so in this instance, I will log in as an admin, and I will directly be going to adaptive authentication. So this plugin comes automatically installed from W-release onwards. But in case if it is not there, you can install this adaptive authentication plugin. So if you go to adaptive authentication, you get filter criteria, policy context, and then policies and properties. Now, if you're not familiar, the way adaptive authentication works is that first you define few inputs using which you want to craft your policies. Once your inputs are associated with policies, then you define your conditions. And then you associate your policies to a context. Context is nothing but an enforcement point. And when one of the conditions associated with policy, then the security control gets applied. Okay, so our current use case for the demo purpose today is very simple. The admin wants to create a policy that says that the admin users, it's a high privilege user, they only want to allow that users to log in into the instance if they are on trusted network. And for all other users, they are okay to have a session from anywhere. So for that feature, first thing that we have to do as an admin is define the trusted network. So I'll go to adaptive authentication and IP filter criteria. And under this, I can define one or multiple ranges. So for the demo purpose, I have defined this trusted network. Okay, so I have just taken the current type, the ranges, and then my current session is actually part of this IP range. Okay, so after defining the IP range, the second thing we have to do is we also define some role criteria so that we can define a proper conditions. So for that, I will go to role filter criteria, and I have also defined a role filter criteria. Again, this is very simple, has admin role, and what it simply says is that this filter criteria will evaluate to true if the user has the admin role. After defining these two filter criteria, the next step I have to do is define a policy. So again, for the demo purpose, I have defined a policy, and the policy is allow admin sessions from trusted networks, and non-admin sessions can be allowed from everywhere. Okay, so the first thing I have to do is I have to click on edit and then select the criteria that I want to use. So as you can see, I have already selected has admin role criteria and the trusted network criteria. So I'll just cancel it. Once I have associated the criteria to the policy, the next thing we have to do is define the conditions. So I have two conditions. The first condition says that allow admin sessions from trusted network. So this criteria will evaluate to true if the user has admin role and if they are on trusted network. Again, I'll just repeat. This condition will evaluate to true if the user is on trusted network and if they have the admin role. The second condition is non-admin sessions. So this condition, it doesn't use the IP criteria. It simply says that this condition will evaluate to true if the user does not have the admin role. Okay, pretty basic conditions. And after doing this, we will activate the policy. So you can see that I have already activated this policy. Now, for this demo purpose, I will assign this particular policy to two security adaptive authentication security context. First one is your post authentication policy. The post authentication policy, I have defined the default policy as allow. So what it will do is that it will allow the access to the instance only if one of the conditions associated with this policy evaluates to true. Again, this is an allow policy. It will allow the session if one of the condition evaluates to true. If the condition, if none of the condition evaluates to true, then users will see failed login. If they're using SSO, they will be redirected to failed login page. Similarly, if they're using local login, they will see a message saying that due to a policy, your session is not allowed. Okay, so this is an existing, I've not talked about anything related to the new capability. This is an existing thing. So what I'm going to do is, this is the new context that is available from the Washington release onwards, which is called session validation context. And I'm again using the same control. I am defining an allow policy. I'm defining a policy with allow outcome, and I'm using the same policy that within a logged in session, allow the admins only from trusted network, while non-admins can have the session from everywhere. Okay. After defining the policy, I just need to enable two properties. So first is your enable authentication property. So this is required for post authentication policy to work. And then there's this new property, which is session validation feature. Okay. Once you enable this property, you're all set to go. In addition, I have also defined this message. This is a custom message to showcase that when post authentication policy denies access to the instance, user will get this custom message. By default, they get the same username and password invalid message. Okay, so with this, we are all set. And then I can do two things. One is I can log in, I can show a live demo, but for that I have to change my network and then I may get disconnected. So I have a recorded video of 1 minute and I'll quickly show it. Okay.
Yeah, while you're searching around your things, I appreciate it. That's really insightful knowledge around the zero trust access. So if the team, if you have any question regarding to the content and that we just presented, please feel free to type on the Zoom chat, and we're happy to address your concern and question as well.
Yes, so I'm ready with this demo. So it's just will take just 1 minute. So it's the same instance, and you can see that I have just recorded it 15 minutes ago. So I will log in as an admin, and because I'm connected on my VPN, which is part of the trusted network, I will be able to successfully pass that post authentication policy, and user is able to have the session. Now, for the demo purpose, I'll just simply disconnect. So at this point, I am going out of the trusted network. So ideally, the post authentication policy the session validation context policy should kick in, and it should throw out this user. So yeah, this was the demo from the end user perspective. And you can see that the moment network changes, the platform automatically detects the change and then apply the security policy that, oh, is this session should still be allowed, or should I kick out the user and then invalidate it, right? Now, in what scenarios it will be important? So if you have any such scenario where you have defined post authentication policy, I will strongly recommend that you should also use that policy with session validation context, what it will do is that it will provide you protection throughout your session, not only at the time of login, but only also throughout the session. Okay. The second scenario is, which is very important, is protection against session hijacking attacks, right? So let's assume a scenario where an attacker has got hold to session cookies. Now, if they import those cookies to a different machine or a different network, they can have the session, right? Now, if you have session validation context enabled on your instance, what will happen is that with the stolen cookies, they will be able to launch the UI, but the moment platform realizes that, okay, although the cookie is valid, but I am seeing that it's not associated with the same IP address which was there at the time of login, it will reevaluate the policy. And because the admin will be outside the trusted network, they will immediately be logged out and the cookie will be invalidated. So in that way, you are basically binding your IP address to the session. And then anyone who doesn't have access to a trusted network, they will not be able to use those cookies. Now, I'm always giving the example of trusted network, but that's actually not necessary. If you want that for every IP change, you want to ask your users to log in again, then you can do that as well. What you have to do is in your session validation context, you can simply say that I don't want to use any network related condition. So in that way, whenever IP changes, it will reevaluate the policy. So I will give an example. So let's say if you are defining a policy saying which is evaluating to true for all user sessions. Basically, I can define two conditions. One is if the user has admin role, or the second condition is if the user doesn't have the admin role. So basically, it will always be evaluating to true, right? Now, in this case, what I can do is I can choose a policy in such a way that for that it will evaluate false when uh, user's IP address is changing. Okay, so what will happen in that case is every time the platform detects a change in the IP address, it will evaluate the policy, and then it will log out the user if the IP address is not seen. The reason I have given the trusted network example is that we want to ensure that while we want to protect the instance and apply the right security, we also do not want to hamper the user experience in a very bad way. So for that reason, I would recommend that you can define your trusted network, and then uh, if if the IP address is changing from one IP to another IP within your trusted network, user should still continue to have the session. But if it is going from your defined range, then you can log them out. But yeah, it's your choice. If you are comfortable with the different security posture and you're okay your end users having a little bit poorer user experience, then you can uh, basically log them out every time the IP address changes. But basically that's the choice you have to make. So with that, I am done with the demo. Final thing, if you want to see the different enforcement, the adaptive authentication events table is there for you. And then you can see the different logs whenever the session validation context policy evaluates to false, you will be able to see a log here and you will be able to see what the policy was. So in that way, you can track that how many times the session validation policy context resulted in terminating the sessions. Yeah, that's pretty much for the demo. I'll go back to my slides, or forget that we can take any questions if
Thanks,
you have.
Render. Thank you. So there's two questions. One is from Will. He is asking, how does a customer get entitled for this? So that's related to some sort of purchasing related question, but I can answer. If you're looking for to purchase Zero Trust Access, there are two ways to purchase this. One is you can purchase through our Vault offering. The Vault is, as you might aware, that we ran a lot of academy sessions around Vault. Vault is our bundled security product that gives the additional layer of protection and security to ServiceNow platform. So Zero Trust Access is one of the premium offering that we offer and bundled together within Vault, so you can get that entitlement. Or you can, if you're only looking for the Zero Trust Access, based on what Randir just demoed and explained around these different capabilities, you can purchase Zero Trust access through our all la carte SKU as well.
Yeah. Just to add one important item for here, we know that session validation context provides security against session hijacking attacks. So this feature we have made available within the adaptive authentication. So if you have installed adaptive authentication, you will automatically get it without any additional SKU purchase.
Yeah, cool. So there's another question around there. I'm not sure if you're reading that from Philippa. Philippa is asking, I don't know if this is related to the topic, but more likely it's related to authentication. But a customer asked us if in the future change to groups or role will be applied immediately to reduce attack on the surface. So that's something that you might be
This is
aware.
related to this is related to authorization. So basically what Philippa is saying is that today the changes to role membership or the group membership gets applied only if the current user logs out and then they log in again. Ideally, this should be doable. I will take this as a feedback item and share with the authorization PM. But currently, based on my current knowledge, it is not possible.
I see.
However, I would like you to look at the time limited roles feature. If you want to allow certain roles to be given to the user for a very small duration for a specific purpose, you can use the time limited roles feature as well. But I'll take this as a feedback. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Would you mind sharing back to that screen one more time? Just gonna go over a few what's available portion there, and then we'll get some questions hopefully. So if you have any other questions regarding to Zero Trust Access, please feel free to ask. And also, Randir and I had hosted one session in the past. It's available on YouTube as well, which is really around overview of the Zero Trust Access capability for any features which came before Washington. So if you really want to understand end to end how that's the privilege, how we're going to reduce privilege access based on the IP address and network and the devices that you're in, I'll highly recommend you to watch that the presentation that we had, which is on YouTube as well. So this is one of the Platform Price and Security Academy session. So if you're are really interested in around other product offerings for the access analyzer or platform encryption and access control or beyond, you feel free to register. I'm happy to bring the experts who are extremely knowledgeable around this area to cover some of the key components and features and enhancement around these products as well. So in the June 2024, we're going to be having another session around access analyzer as well. For the next slide. So there's a few the documentations available for you to see, view, and to learn our platform, especially from platform security perspective. One of the things that I highly recommend you to scan this QR code on the left to tune in and understand all the recorded sessions that we had in the past through our Academy sessions for either if it's Vault Bundle, encryption, data privacy, Zero Trust Access, and some other the features enhancement that we had in the past as well. So for the documentation, we have a product documentation that gives you intensive knowledge around all the product offerings and how we're going to be entitled to this, how we're going to kind of like just understand the features and what are the plugin and configuration installation guides there as well. And we have a NAD community, so feel free to join us, become a member, and feel free to ask a lot of questions from us and give us a feedback so that we can take your input to make a better product in the future as well. And then, like last but not least, we have a ServiceNow.com website. So if you're interested in purchasing any of our product, feel free to reach out to us through your sales. We're happy to take your the question or anything related to our security products before you make any purchasing decision as well. So I'm gonna give pause here like for 2 more minutes to see if the team has any other question. Before we wrap up, Randir, do you have any other comments that you want to highlight?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, if you have any other question related to Zero Trust Access or in the whole authentication area, please feel free to drop that in the Q&A tab. I'm happy to take those questions as well. this was pretty straightforward, but in case you have any other question related, let's say API access policy or OAuth or integrations, let me know. I can help with those questions as well.
Yeah. With that, we're going to wrap up today's session. So remember, feel free to just subscribe to our YouTube channel under Platform Privacy and Security, where we have hosted roughly around like 13 or 14 different sessions there. You can feel free to learn about all different product offerings and make your purchasing decision. Thank you so much, Randir, for joining this call. I appreciate it you all for joining this call. Till next time, stay tuned. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot for that. Bye.